let's flip a coin. Heads Carolina, tails California.
Okay, this is the Ask Andy show. I'm 16 years of non-stop travel, 90 countries. I'll soon be in Vilcabamba, Ecuador, and in the fall I'll be in Europe. So get your questions ready and ask them. Derek O. from Ireland asked a question. New question coming from a small country which was under rule for 800, looks like for 800 years, like Africa, a former colony. He's from Ireland, so he's saying basically they were probably under British rule, right? But managed to break free. How valid is the statement that Africa remains an impoverished continent? It's because of the white man. The white man is to blame, as I have been told numerous times by people collecting money for Africa. Okay, well, this is pretty dysfunctional to take on the guilt of something that happened, I don't know, 300 or 400 years ago and was considered standard operating procedure at the time. Anybody that lays guilt on you at all or makes you feel obligated from a sense of guilt, don't give them money, because this is not the reason to give. You give to be generous, and you give to, you see a real problem and you give. You don't give because of guilt. Okay, how valid is the station? It's because it's to blame. The economic problems of Africa are not, I don't believe, the, okay, economies are graded kind of on a curve, okay, and this is the hard part. You have economies that are really good, and then you must have the poor economies to make the rich economies look rich. Japan, maybe Korea now, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. These are your richest economies. England's got a lot of jobs. These are your high-end economies that probably have the quality of life the highest. Switzerland. And then you have your African countries, and not all African countries are that poor. I mean, you have the Arabic part of the country at the top, but you have some. What's nice in Southeast Asia is they have a lot of products. So the quality of life is a kind of a combination of the food you eat plus the products you can buy. So China supplies a lot of very cheap products, so makes Southeast Asia a lot richer than other places. Even though they may not earn that much money, they may only earn $10, $15 a day, they still can buy a lot of these little convenience products like, fingernail clippers and things like that are easier to do. Is it because of the white man? My answer is no. I do, but then I'll say yes in the sense that somehow all of Africa, the biggest problem in Africa probably is the fact that the people with the most brains, they have brain drain real thing. Anybody that gets rich, anybody that does successful, they instantly move to Europe and they leave Africa, so they're always taking the cream right off the top and leaving a place. And I think that's that coupled with the fact that the tribal chiefs were like small dictators, and there's one of these tribal chiefs every neighborhood, really. So you have these tribal chiefs every, say, 25 miles, and this person earns his money by almost tribute by everybody around him. This is a self-sabotaging thing. Anybody that it's a culture that sabotages itself. When you have a chief, he survives by money coming in from the people that are in his local territory that he doesn't, and in return maybe he adds protection. So it's like a fiefdom. It's just like a king and a fief. A fief was protected by the king. The king system in Europe was just a big chief. Okay, so the same thing. And the minute you became a chief in Africa, it means that you can get fat and stop working. And this mentality still exists today. Anybody that becomes a boss in Africa instantly gets to stop working. So the cream of the creme, the person that works their way up, finally gets to the point where they're in management, now stops working. That means that the top level management doesn't work. And I think that's a real cultural problem that has maintained for another, it's still there and it's still everywhere. You can see it, you can walk in an office, you can almost never find a boss. And that means he's out drinking, carousing around, or the women, whatever it is. The hope of Africa, for me, is that the women take over the management position, and they really don't see themselves as, they're more international. And I think what you'll see is that the women will take over all the management of Africa. And in the next 20 to 30 years, it'll change around, and the men will still believe that they don't have to work, but the women will be running the businesses, and they'll sort of take us out of poverty. Plus, you know, the TV and internet is quickly setting up examples of how a person's supposed to live. And the idea of just sitting there, I mean, you'll still see Nigeria movies where the chief and the fat guy sits there, all the women come and talk to him. But when this slowly breaks down, because of TV and stuff, I believe that soon they'll be watching so much television that's westernized, it'll change around, and the men will believe they have to work. But you can imagine, you have 20 people, and all of a sudden the guy gets promoted to the boss. He's the brightest and the sharpest person in the group, and he stops working. That's the chief mentality of Africa, and I think that's really the root cause of poverty in Africa. Plus, you know, it's the crab theory that anybody that gets ahead, you can put crabs in a bucket and they can never get out of the bucket because all the crabs will keep pulling them out. One crab in the bucket, he can climb out, but if you put 3 or 4, they can't climb out because they'll keep pulling each other down. They're not looking at, you know, it's still survival of the fittest. They basically don't really try to do the best job. They just try to destroy their competition. So it's some really strange mechanics on why the Africa's poor. But I don't think it has anything to do, really. I would say 90% of the problem is just the problem of the chief. You can see that any cultures where they have, a lot of the Islamic cultures or Muslim cultures, have a problem because the mullah takes over the area like a mafia boss, and it makes to rise socially up in the thing almost impossible. So, because at the end of the day, the reason why you earn money a lot of times is not just to have money, is to rise socially in the group. And the chief was the highest on the social level, the mullah or whatever, and is the highest person. And you see monks in Tibet, they're highest. And it's really about status a little bit more, and not looking stupid, a little bit more than just money. So you got to get status and money put together. And you can have status, not high status, without necessarily a large amount of money. Okay, thank you. Good question.
We